Okie dokie. I think we are live. Welcome to Her First Million, a new YouTube channel tailored exclusively for women in the trades and in manufacturing. I'm Amanda Bedell, your host and resident business chaos sorter. With Her First Million, we provide 3 segments to set your business and transform it to get to a million and beyond. There are 3 segments that I love to do, and that includes Love Your Numbers. That's where I unravel the complexities of financial management, where we demystify the numbers so that you can confidently optimize your business for greater profitability. I'm not talking about accounting 101. I'm talking about how you financially manage your company. In the second segment, I also have Ask Amanda. That is questions that you send me. So whether that's you're sending me a DM for privacy's sake, or you're sharing inquiries in the comments below, I am thrilled to hear from you and share insights that will help you have greater success in business. And the segment that I am most excited about are the interviews. I sit down with trailblazing women entrepreneurs who have excelled in industries traditionally dominated by men. In these interviews, we unearth the strategies and navigate through challenges and uncover the well-kept secrets that have held exceptional women from that coveted million and beyond. So today, right here and right now, we are live to have one of those conversations with none other than Billie Spark. Her story is set to inspire, and her insights are set to transform. And her journey really is a testament to the incredible potential that awaits within each of you. So without further ado, let's dive into the heart of Her First Million, and let me share with you Billie Spark. Hi, Billie.
Hi, Amanda.
Billie is a catalyst for success with decades of upper management experience and a reputation as an award finalist. And Billie has earned her stripes in entrepreneurship. Along with her husband, she manages 4 successful companies from their home office where innovation thrives. I love that. Balancing entrepreneurship with parenthood and caregiving for her father-in-law, Billie excels in time management and prioritizing work-life balance. Can't wait to hear some more about that, Billie. After hearing Billie speak, and experience her presence, audiences are inspired and empowered to unlock their potential. With over 80,000 followers and features in 300 plus media outlets, she gives a lasting impact that ignites motivation and drives success. I am so glad that you're here, Billie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and just share with your followers too.
Could you share just a little bit about how you got here and who you are and what you do, a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. So originally I worked in mining, and then in shipping, and then in construction. And I've always worked in small business. I spent 8 weeks over in America traveling around in an RV. We did 18 states in 8 weeks. And what I found, it was a great trip. What I noticed, though, while I was there was this real lacking desire of hope within the small business community. And that just doesn't happen in Australia. So in Australia, small business actually makes up 93% of the businesses that Australia has. So it's a huge portion, whereas the numbers are quite different in America. So just seeing that change while I was over there, when I came back, I knew that I had the skills and capabilities to do something about that. And that's when I actually left the corporate world and went out on my own. And then since then, I guess there's just no holding me back. So we started obviously with one business, which was just a personal brand, doing public speaking, business coaching, mentoring, things like that. And now we also own a cleaning and yard maintenance business, a handyman and electrical business, a marketing agency, and we're actually starting our 5th business at the moment in the background. It's all under wraps. So that's happening as well. So always plenty happening here.
Wow. Those are a lot of businesses, but I can see how they might wrap together and kind of feed off of each other in one sense or another. How does that work for you?
Yeah, definitely. So they feed into each other. At the core of what we do, it's service-based business,
Mm-hmm.
and it's customer service. I think if you pull any of their businesses apart, the one key denominator is that customer service driving factor.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that without my staff, I don't have any businesses. So creating differences in the workforce, which we don't usually see as mums or women, I've found to be really beneficial in keeping staff long term and creating those other job opportunities. And it's just so impressive when you meet with women that are highly skilled. I'm talking like lawyers that don't want to go back to being a lawyer after having children because they don't want the stress or pressure, but they're happy to, work 3 days a week and those types of things. So you're getting these highly skilled women come into our places of business and work for us at a rate that is not usually what you would pay in the corporate world, which and then you have a lawyer on staff, which is amazing.
Wow. That is amazing. And, when I think of some of the issues that I have with folks that own trades companies, they have a really hard time with recruitment and retention. So, usually when people say that to me, I tell them, how are we making them win, or what are your training processes? What's the transparency, the things like that. But can you share a little bit of what you do in order to retain people that are at that skill level, but also enjoying the work-life balance of working in one of your companies?
Yeah, so I think the biggest staff retention can save millions of dollars depending on the size of your business. It's at least going to save you thousands, even if you only have a few employees. And as you look at that, I think what's very interesting is a lot of people will look at their staff and say, well, they just want more money. I just need to pay them more and they'll stay. But that's not always the case. I think really understanding each staff member individually and what their goals are and what they're working towards. And their goals are obviously going to be different to yours, but it might be to buy a house, or their kids wanted to learn to surf and they don't live near the beach, so they need an extra day off a week. So changing their working hours, maybe they work a 9-day fortnight so that every fortnight they have a day off, which they wouldn't have had before, might just be what they're looking for. And even in the yard maintenance business this week, we've had 100 mils of rain in the last few days. So obviously we can't do yard maintenance. We're coming into Easter. In Australia, we have Friday and Monday will be public holidays. So we're coming into a long weekend. So early at the start of the week, we basically just sat all of the yard maintenance staff down and said, look, do you guys want to have the week off? Do you want to work? What do you want to do? And half of them just said, I'd rather take off early this week and go away and work harder next week. So for those staff, that's what we did. And then for the staff that were like, no, I actually need a bit of money this week, we just found jobs like hedging and snipping and things that could be done in wet weather and put it with those staff. So just communicating on those different levels and finding different strategies that are going to work for people. Maybe they can't start till 9:30. We employ a lot of mums in the cleaning business.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find is a lot of them want to do that morning drop-off routine at school. They might even want to do reading at school, those little things that happen in the morning, go to parade and things like that. So they start their days a little bit later, around 9:30, 10 o'clock, but then they're happy to put their kids into after school care and work until 5 or 5:30. So they're still getting a decent day and getting that good work-life balance that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get there? What kind of set you up for this kind of, I would call it people first attitude when it comes to business, even though, I would hope that everyone has a people first experience with business, which our businesses are built on the backs of labor. So we need it. But where did that come from for you? Where were you exposed to that?
Yeah, definitely. I became a manager at 21, was the first time I was officially titled a manager. But if we wanted to, I was actually, my first job was at a taxi service where you allocate drivers to jobs, right? I was 15 years old. That was my first job. So even then, that's still a management position at 15. Mm-hmm. So I think I learned from a really young age, if you could better manage those people, then you would get better results. Right. Mm-hmm. And That's just what it came down to. So when I actually did become a manager, I started looking at everyone's strengths and weaknesses, playing to that, and just building on it. And trial and error things when I was working for other people was always good, right? Because it's not my bottom line back then. So it was okay. And I could test those little theories out that I had in my head to say, like, if we separated those jobs and gave people a bigger workload, would they actually be more productive because there was more pressure? Rather than people say, I'm stressed and my workload is stressing me out, it wasn't. If we broke down the workload and looked at the stresses, they just didn't like certain aspects of their job, but they really thrived in other areas. And then the other staff member would thrive in those opposite areas. So just half the jobs and give the people the work they actually want to do. And they were more productive anyway and cost the business less. Like mental health in Australia with employment costs $18 billion a year. So, and you take off 3 times more time with a mental health issue. So understanding your staff and your whole network is so important to your bottom line at the end of the day, and understanding and realizing how much it's going to cost you if you don't change. Like, you can't just keep doing what you're doing. And when I talk to lawyers and things like that, and they don't want to go back into the workforce, they don't want to go back into a male-dominated workforce that wasn't flexible. And like, we're all online now. Like, COVID basically pushed everybody online, and yet we're still seeing big business try and force people back into offices when there's really no need. If you look at the productivity level, they'll say it's down, but it's not. Productivity has never been higher. You'll get more out of your staff. They get to travel less, they're less stressed. So they're not looking at productivity as a whole. They're just taking the numbers they want to try and force people back in, which I think is totally unfair.
Yeah. When I think about back, my past is in a bakery business. So I started a bakery business back in 2012, bootstrapped it from a single farmers market booth, and then created a manufacturing facility, and we sold 2.2 million in sales. And a lot of the people that I employed were entry level. And one of the things that I think about with trades, and why I love working with people in the trades and manufacturing, is that we're able to create livable wage jobs for people that have barriers to employment. So when I hear you talking about those things, I'm thinking about all of the things that I was able to do, but my business was a low margin. I was trying to get people out of my company. So when I would hire them in, it would be, I know that you're going to leave me, but I want to set you up for the next stage. So I did things like Clifton Strengths. So I'd bring in Strengths Finder, where after 90 days, my employees got an assessment to do Strengths Finder, and then we would go out and have lunch and talk about their different strengths, and also where we could fit them within the company, but also where they wanted to go, like where was the future. So I would create New Flowers alumni is what I would call them. They were my alumnus, and I absolutely loved that kind of culture, if you will. I know that word is loaded, but like the feeling that I cared about them beyond where they were going. So when people tell me that they're having a hard time finding employees, I got to tell you, I never did. I did for a moment until I started doing some of these things. And you and I have that in common. I was a really young boss too, and made a lot of mistakes. I have friends that I was their boss, and they tell me, when I was 21 or 22 years old, and all of the things like the stories that they would tell me, and I'm just like, oh dear, oh my gosh. But that's a really cool thing to hear about, that you've got that kind of outlook as well. And with the pandemic, we have so many different options now as far as how people work, where they work, and what we can do with them.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's different opportunities, and businesses are either willing to grow with those opportunities, or they're looking at them as flaws, which the world is changing faster than we've ever seen. And you have to keep up with innovation to stay ahead of the game in every single business. So it surprises me that so many businesses aren't looking to do that.
Mm-hmm. And we're shifting from an economy where businesses, at least in the US, businesses never really had to search or differentiate themselves to employees. It was like, like just answer the ad and you come to us. Whereas now with folks, I feel like we have to take some of those marketing strategies that we use to bring in prospects or clients or customers and turn that on to our recruitment side instead of putting up a job description that says need a waitress or entry level blah blah blah, and all of these demands that we have for each of the this job needs this, and you must have this and this. We have to switch as business owners to see another side, and some of the things like what are the things that we have to have, and how can we turn this job description into a magnet versus oh my gosh, I need this and this and this.
Yeah, absolutely. And when like in Australia and in the US, there's like this search engines like Seek and Indeed, to go and find employment jobs. So we just run ads on Facebook now. We don't even advertise on a regular channel. Like, that's it. We run Facebook ads, and unless it's a traded skill like an electrician, handyman, obviously you need some experience sometimes. I tell everyone, regardless of that, I employ you based on personality. Like you have to fit in with the workforce as a whole. And if I think if you come and interview and your personality clicks but you're not a great fit for the job, I'll find a job for you. I'll find you a job because we need you here. So I'm always looking for that too. I'm like, we need that person. How can we get them to come and work with us?
Well, and there are just skills that you can't teach. The proactive folks and people that come with a positive attitude and instead of reactive and like sitting back and those kinds of things.
And different personality types. I think certain personality types are really good for management positions, and if you spot them, just hold on to them and train them up so that they can come and work with you in different aspects and different forms.
Yeah. As you progress towards your first million, what do you remember being the first obstacle you had, and how did you overcome it?
I think towards my first million would have been fear of rejection. Like I'm very upfront. What you see is what you get. I've always been like that. But that fear of rejection, like putting your all into something and it not working out, which could be seen as fear of failure, that played a lot into it. And then as I overcame like that fear of failure, it actually became fear of success. I was raised like with a single mom in housing commission. I didn't come from a lot. It was a very small country town. So a lot of my family still live like from government support and things like that. And they're not wealthy by any means. So fear of success really started to creep in for me and what that looks like. And I remember talking to a friend who came from a similar story. And she said to me, for the first 3 years that she flew business class, every time she would fly, she would donate that same amount of money to charity to like compensate this feeling of success inside of her. I thought, it's crazy. Like to think that you're that afraid of being successful because of like what other people might think of you as that change happens. And people are right. People say you'll lose friends along the way, and you definitely do. I don't think, though, it's because of why people think it's because you have different money and you spend differently. I don't actually think that's why. I think it's because your mindset changes and you then only want to be surrounded by people with a very similar mindset. So it's just like saying, I like to read books, so I go to book club. If you don't read books, you're not going to be in a book club. And I think that's why your friends change. It's not actually to do with the money at all. It's to do with the growth mindset that starts to occur.
It's almost like we planned this, because my next question would be, what's the most significant mindset shift or realization that you had on the way there? And
yeah, so well, like I would have always said I've had somewhat a growth mindset from
okay.
a very early age. I knew what I didn't want. I knew that I didn't want the life that I had. I knew I wanted more. I didn't know how to get there, and I didn't know the path that I was going to go on or take or learn from. But every time I think, oh yeah, I've reached this growth mindset now, this is as good as my growth mindset is going to get. I just keep progressing, and that growth mindset just continues to grow and evolve and change. And those different things inside of you, any childhood trauma or disbeliefs that you had, and you continue to shift and move that. And it's funny, like when people used to talk to me about manifestation, like I would say even 4 or 5 years ago, like not long ago, people would say, you know, I manifested this money, or I manifested this job. And I thought, you can't wish something. Like that is not how it works. Like hard work, determination, you'll get there. And then I realized that's actually not what manifestation is. It's just about talking yourself up that much that you start drawing those things in, because you truly start to believe it. And I was already doing that. I just wasn't calling it manifestation. But I think once people realize, like, when people talk about manifestation, it's not talking about if you wish for $1,000, you're going to get $1,000. It's constantly talking to yourself about that $1,000, and then that becomes the focus of where your brain is constantly looking to get that $1,000, and you will make it happen.
I think that's a really significant distinction for folks, and I can see where it gets a little confusing at the very beginning, because you hear of manifestation, but it's not manifestation, or you meditate on whatever, and then you go eat McDonald's and sit on your couch, right? Definitely the work has to get into it, but there's a scientific, and I have experienced it. I'm not a coach in this or field, but I've experienced that, like, your body starts to, when you talk to yourself about what it looks like to be at wherever you want to be, or a relationship that you want to have, your body and your mind start looking for it out in the world. So it's less about it just happening like a genie in a bottle, and more about you conditioning yourself to be aware, and then you see the opportunities as they come in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just it, just being aware and keeping your mind open to it. I get told a lot, still now, like, you must not be doing it properly if you have so many businesses. And that's just, it's such a closed-minded statement. I'm like, that's because you might have one trade-based business that you're really struggling to cope with and manage and all of those things. But my mindset's on a completely different trajectory. And that's how I'm able to cope. I don't work in every single one of those businesses every single day. All of those businesses have business managers. That's usually who I'm talking to. You know, I'm working on the business, not in the business. So it's a completely different mindset shift.
That's really important, because, when I read your bio at the beginning, and I said, 4 companies, and now we're looking at 5, it is a lot of folks here, oh, I should just do one. And I get that as well with, my mentor says, until one hits 5 million, you should not be doing another. It's diversifying too soon. But, with your companies, when you're telling me that it's an electric company, a cleaning company, a marketing company, a brand, your personal coaching and stuff, all of that melds together really well. So what my mentor says to me is, the first one will always, or the second one will always eat the first one. But if they're feeding off of each other, that's a whole different story. So yeah, those of you that are watching or listening later, know that this is a second level. This is business 3.0, or not even 2.0, growth mindset 3.0, because really, I do want you to see success in that first landscaping business before we create something that is potentially a marketing generating machine or whatever it is that you create, right? And I teach that in my 5-day focus that I'll talk about later, but how to become a $1 million company with less time, that whole model. But I love that you brought that up, the mindset shift there.
I think you're right too, though. Like at the start, you said that one of the things that you focus on is your numbers. And I always tell people, I'm like, you need to know your numbers. And somebody said to me the other day, well, what does that actually mean?
Yes.
And I get that. Like, it's not as easy for everyone. But it's not as complicated as what people think either. What you really need to understand is your revenue and your outgoings, like all of your expenses, to work out your profit. And then you take that number and you can manipulate it so that you get your down to the hourly profit if you charge out at an hourly service. And that's really important, because if you know that you're only making, say, $6 an hour on one staff member, then it tells you, okay, well, I need this many staff members to make this much profit. And people will say, like, I made this much money. I'm like, yeah, but how much profit did you make? Because you can work your ass off all day long and have nothing left. And the amount of trade businesses I talk to, that's what's happening. I'm like, and it's because they never looked at their numbers from the beginning, and they just assumed, or they wanted to undercut. I'm like, there's a reason that's what people were charging. So constantly looking at your numbers specific to you, because you might have different outgoings, and then saying like, okay, well, if I'm more expensive than the market, how can I be competitive? And one of the first things I usually tell people is look at your outgoings. What can you reduce? If you can't reduce your outgoings, you have to up level that service and be like, okay, how am I competitive from a service perspective? Do we offer something different? Is it the customer service? Do they get an SMS? Do they get more days to pay? Like, what is it that separates your business from your competitors if you're more expensive?
Yeah. Yeah. You need that strong differentiator for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That opens up so many things that I want to talk to you about. My business and the bakery business that I alluded to earlier, and those that watch my channel know that I had no profit. I ran out of personal capital to continue my business, even though we were well into the millions. And though my sale was successful on paper, I was heartbroken. So those numbers and that idea, the elusive, like, oh, you need to know your numbers, or numbers are the language of business. All of that did not make sense to me until after I really dove into where I went wrong and how to really, I learned accounting 101, and that's what's out in like the free resources like Score and different things. They just teach us how to read our P&L, but for a lot of folks that's just it, they don't understand. So some of the financial management pieces that I incorporate have to do with transitioning numbers into percentages, looking at ratios, and exactly what you're saying, diving down all the way into when are you starting to make money off of that employee? How much burn rate do we have before they're trained up, and all of those different numbers. So that's really awesome.
Exactly that. And the other thing, like, training is so expensive. Looking at how you're training and saying, like, is there a better way? Can we save money? Like, obviously you still need them to be trained as best you can, but are we training the most efficient way? And looking at all of those different numbers is so important. And I love it. People say to me, what do you do every day? I'm like, well, I just sit at my desk. My life's really not that exciting, to be completely honest. But I spend most of my day looking at numbers. That is what I'm doing. I sit here most days creating strategies, looking at different revenue streams. What can we add on to a business to create a different revenue stream? Having those conversations with the staff, going out and seeing if there's a problem. I like to go out and be like, okay, well, all right, if we're cleaning windows and we used to say it takes 5 minutes, why does it take 20? And how can we justify that to the customer? Those types of things is how I spend my day. It's not a luxurious, like, fantasy world. Like, most days, yes, I do go for lunch a few times a week. I don't work every single day. I only now work in the office 3 days a week. But it's not a pretty, it's not a glamorous lifestyle, that's for sure.
That just brings us back to reality, right? Because the Instagram world wants to show you as, somebody that's on a private jet or whatever it be. But when we're in businesses and, you have children and a father-in-law to take care of as well, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of boundaries you put in place to ensure that you can take care of your companies, but also your family?
Yeah, so my husband was working in the businesses. He doesn't anymore. He just he's, I guess, what you would call a stay-at-home dad. We homeschool, so he homeschools our daughter, and he does the cooking, takes her to things like that. He takes very good care of me, brings me lunch and tea and things like that, muesli bars, all of those different things. Yeah, and it's because I would just not leave my desk, and he knows that. He's like, you haven't eaten. You start work at 4 a.m. and it's now 9 and you haven't had anything to eat. I'm like, yeah, I'm just getting there. I didn't think about it. So that's really what he does. And then my father-in-law, so I used to take him to all of his doctor's appointments and things like that as well. My husband's just started doing that instead, to free up some of my time. But people will say, like, you need this fine line between work and life, like this work life. I don't have that. I've never had that. Even when I worked for other companies, I just didn't have it. It's a big joke in our household that work is my hobby. So that is just a fact that it is who I am at my core. I never feel like I'm working. I would say that when it starts to become stressful is when I need to look at it. If I'm feeling pressure or stress. So like my work day starts pretty early, around 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning, but I'm usually finished by 12 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's when I feel like I'm the most productive. And I might answer emails and come back and forth from that, but I don't usually come back and sit at my desk after that time. And then between 4 and 8 o'clock at night, my phone goes on silent, so that I'm only reacting to what I want to react to. And then after 8 p.m., it goes into do not disturb. So I literally get no calls, nothing comes through, no notifications. All of my notifications are off anyway, all of the time. And my phone does live on silent quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which people are like, what? Your phone lives on silent? Yeah, it actually does.
I do that too.
I find I'm more productive. Most of the things, when people call me, it's not urgent. I can get back to them. And I get back to them once I'm finished a task. If I'm getting pulled, especially when you have so many different businesses, there's a lot of different people pulling you constantly. And if as soon as my focus shifts, I'm just not being as productive. So I'm better off finishing what I was doing and then going to address that next issue, rather than just constantly being pulled all the time. So I do find that setting those boundaries with my phone is really important. Taking the time with my family, just doing things, going away, just playing a game together, any of those small things is important. But every single person is going to be different. If you know that spending time, you need to spend a certain amount of time to fill your cup, then that's what you need to do. We've only just started homeschooling this year. And so last year, my daughter did go to a school. I have never done school drop-off or pickup because, in my opinion, it's a waste of time. It does not fill my cup at all. The thought of driving there to have to drop her off, to then like drive back to pick her up, to drive back home. I'm like, that is why it does nothing for me. Whereas for some mums, like, they love that. They love that. Yeah, so do it. But for me, I hate this. I don't want to do it.
This is like 30 minutes of my time that I could be doing.
Yeah, I was like, if someone brings her home, then usually by the time she's come home, then I'm completely done for the day. Yeah. And I get to sit down, have afternoon tea with her, chat about her day. I get to do all of this stuff, but I'm actually in the moment with her, rather than driving or still thinking about everything else I didn't get done because I had to leave to go and pick her up. So it's about choosing, I think, what is important to you And I'll always say there's no success without sacrifice. You will sacrifice something or many things along the way. But you have to, obviously, you can't sacrifice those things that fill your cup. You have to look at what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're going to be okay with sacrificing and choose them wisely.
I like that. And I feel a sense of camaraderie here when it comes to business being your hobby as well, because I feel the same way. It's just like something that I love talking about. I love being surrounded by people that are doing it too, because we have so many things in common and that kind of stuff. Just so that we hit on this, can you tell me a little bit about gender-related challenges you may have had? And, because most people here in the trades or male-dominated industries, again, like, we're not here to male bash at all. I think that there's brilliance in what has worked, and what doesn't work, we can throw away and do something different. But when you're doing your cleaning business or your electrical business, has there been gender-related challenges or biases in the industry that you've had to overcome, and how's that helped your business grow positively?
Yeah. So, well, because I came from mining, shipping, construction, all very male dominated, I was usually the only girl at the table for a very long time. So when I went out on my own, I was already used to that type of thing, and really used to my ideas being shut down because I was a girl and because I was a young girl. So that was the constant thing that I was already used to. The difference was when I owned my own business, that I didn't have to communicate with those people. If I went into a meeting and somebody was shutting my ideas down just because I was a girl, I didn't want to work with them anyway. I'm not there to change their opinion, because in my opinion, they're not innovative enough to even look past the fact that just my gender. I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing it. Yeah. So initially, I would only work with women. I only wanted to work with women because I couldn't handle this constant gender bias that was happening. And I also found women were more likely to go to a growth mindset. Not initially, when they would come to me, they wouldn't have a growth mindset, but that would change over time. Whereas I found men very complacent, a lot of blaming of things rather than taking ownership and willing to change. And then slowly, as my businesses grew, I started working with husband and wife teams. And what I found was that as a team, when they would come to me, they must get off the call after, and then the wife would talk more and more and more. And then by the next call, some of the things we'd talked about had started to really sink in, and their perception would change over certain things. So I found that a lot with men, just with growth mindset. And I don't know why that is. And I don't think they even intend to do it. It could be as much as like an insecurity within, and what's so socially normal. And to have even like, if I go to a business networking event now, I'm still usually the youngest person in the room, and like very few women. So I do try to go to more just like women in business events, because I find that it's just a better place mindset wise for me to be around. Okay. It's interesting when you are in a room full of successful men, how the conversation flows. It's never about growth mindset. It's always about hard work. And it's like a bragging right of, I worked this many hours and this is what I do to become successful. And I just think there is so many better ways. And it's not that they're not intelligent people. They're probably way smarter than I am and way more knowledgeable in their areas, but their mindsets just are not there to take them to places that they have never even thought of.
Yeah. Wow. I just have a couple more questions that I love to put into every interview because it's a way to give resources to the folks that watch. One of them being, what is essential knowledge you think our listeners should know today to reach their 1 million?
So I would take this question as like, what's the best piece of advice I've been given? And I'm not sure where this piece of advice came from.
Okay.
But for me, it is only focus on the things that you can control. Because day to day, there's so many things that get thrown at you that you just simply cannot control. You cannot control if there's traffic going to work, or, you know, if your kid is sick. You can't control those things. You just need to look at what you can control in that day and focus on that and move forward. If you're spending your time and energy focusing on things that are completely out of your control, it just leads to burnout and stress. There is no good outcome if that's where your focus is.
Oh, I feel that one for sure. And then could you recommend any valuable resources, books, or workshops that have positively influenced your journey?
Yeah. So I love watching YouTube. I love Facebook groups. There's some great Facebook groups out there. Tradie Wives is great for trade wives. It's a great place.
I love that. I didn't know about it, and I looked it up the other day.
Tradie Wives is amazing. Very, very supportive community. And again, if you're facing a lot of those same challenges, so it's great just to be surrounded by those women. There's another one called Like-Minded Bitches Drinking Wine, which is just basically business women all coming together to support each other. So I love those. And then there's a book called Surrounded by Idiots, and I love this book. It's a great read because it will tell you about yourself and why you feel like you might be surrounded by idiots, but it also really allows you to identify different personality types, but then how to communicate with those personality types and understand why there might be friction with certain people. And it's great for personal and professional. You can identify that, hey, my child might be this, or my husband is this, or my mother-in-law is this, whatever it is. Maybe this is why we're actually clashing constantly. And how can I better communicate with those types of people? Because you'll find you naturally communicate with some people really well, and then others you just won't. And I think business is huge. Like, communication is one of the biggest pillars in business. So if you can truly understand what makes you tick and what makes other people tick around you, that will help you long-term forever.
Oh, that's so cool and so true. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Billie. This means a lot to me that you came on to, my Her First Million show. And yeah, are there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the group today before we head off?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me. I think if you're watching this, you already do have a growth mindset and you're looking to learn. Just keep taking in that information, find what works for you and what doesn't. Surround yourself with people that are there to lift you up, not bring you down, and just keep working. There's a little meme that has like a guy chipping away looking for diamond, and he walks away and the diamond's like right on the other side of that rock. And honestly, that's what success is like. You don't know how close you are, but it's likely that you're really close. And as soon as you turn around, you've just turned your back on it. So I think in business, there's times to know when to walk away. But if it's just stress and things like that, you just need to find a better way to be doing it.
Wow, that was a diamond. That was a domino. That right there, you pushed it over. Oh my gosh, I feel like I could ask you another million questions and keep you on the phone for a long time, but I won't. So thank you so much, Billie. I'm going to wrap up here. All for the rest of you, thank you. Viewers, you will have links to the resources that Billie mentioned in the video descriptions later today. And then for those of you that are ready to make your first or next million, I'd love for you to jump into Her First Million 5-Day Focus. That is where I give you proven steps and the exact framework to build a business reaching 7 figures consistently. That's the biggest deal, consistently. So if you've been in business for at least 3 years and you hit a wall, or if you were like me in my bakery business where I hit 2 million annually, but I was working all the time, working in the business, not smart like Billie and on the business, or if you're around the 500K mark with dreams of what that $1 million business looks like on you, all you have to do is follow the proven steps, and I show you it for free. Just give me 60 minutes a day over the course of 5 days, and you'll walk away with a 7-figure framework that you can use now and way into the future. It's a total immersive educational experience on Zoom where you interact with me in real time. And then you get to experience connection of a room filled with like-minded people excited to collaborate and grow together. And the only thing that all of this stuff gets done is with unwavering accountability. So you'll have simple, no shaming, achievable steps each day that will get you to a goal by the end of the 5 days. So you're not just inspired, but you're supportive, and you've taken a massive action that will be felt for months, if not years to come. So the description will have the enrollment link, and your future awaits there so that I can see you on day 1. And if you like what you hear or view here on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and hit that notification button to stay in the loop on the next episode of Her First Million. Until next time, here's to your success.